What would you do if you discovered the person trying to kill your wife was your own blood? Alaric Voss built an empire on calculated risks, but nothing prepared him for the night he caught his sister removing his comatose wife's oxygen mask. In the glittering darkness of Las Vegas, where billion-dollar empires crumble with a single card flip, one woman lies silent, hearing everything. And the sister who wants her dead has no idea that Zafira Voss isn't just fighting for her life. She's already 10 moves ahead. Subscribe now and hit that notification bell, because this story of betrayal, love, and revenge will leave you breathless. The elevator doors opened to chaos. Alaric Voss stepped into the ICU corridor at 3 in the morning, his tailored suit wrinkled from 18 straight hours of damage control, and found 2 nurses arguing in whispered urgency outside his wife's room. The moment they saw him, they fell silent. That silence told him everything and nothing simultaneously. "Mr. Voss, we weren't expecting you until... Where is she?" His voice carried the kind of authority that came from owning half the casinos on the Strip. The shorter nurse stepped aside, her face pale. Alaric pushed through the door and stopped. His sister Mireya stood beside Zafira's bed, holding the oxygen mask in her hands, not adjusting it, holding it, away from Zafira's face. For 3 seconds, nobody moved. The heart monitor beeped steadily, oblivious. The ventilator hummed. Zafira lay motionless, her dark skin almost luminous against the white sheets, her face peaceful despite the tubes and wires mapping her body like a city grid. "Alaric." Mireya's voice was smooth, practiced. She placed the mask back over Zafira's nose and mouth with the care of someone who'd done this before. "You're here early. I was just checking her positioning. The nurses said she'd been restless earlier." Restless. Alaric repeated the word like he was tasting something bitter. A woman in a coma was restless. Micro-movements. It happens. Mireya smoothed her silk blouse, diamonds catching the fluorescent light. At 43, she was still beautiful in that calculated way women with unlimited resources could be. "You look exhausted, brother. When did you last sleep? When did the nurses say she was restless?" "I don't remember exactly. Does it matter?" Mireya moved toward him, her heels clicking on linoleum. "What matters is that you're running yourself into the ground. Zafira wouldn't want that." "Don't." The word came out sharper than he intended. "Don't tell me what she'd want." Something flickered in Mireya's eyes. Hurt, maybe, or something that looked enough like hurt to pass. "I'm trying to help. I've been here every day while you've been saving the company. Someone has to sit with her. I didn't ask you to. She's my sister-in-law, and that's my nephew she's carrying." Mireya glanced at Zafira's barely visible baby bump. "I have every right to be here." Alaric wanted to grab her by the shoulders and demand the truth. He wanted to rewind time to the moment before he'd walked in and see exactly what she'd been doing. Instead, he crossed to Zafira's bedside and took her hand. It was warm, alive, but completely unresponsive. "The board meeting went well," he said quietly, speaking to his wife though she couldn't answer. "Chen tried to push through the merger without you, but I blocked it. Used that clause you buried in the restructuring. You were right about him." Mireya's reflection in the window showed her watching him with an expression he couldn't read. "You should go home," she said finally. "I'll stay with her." "No." Alaric didn't look up. "You should go home. I'm staying." He felt, rather than saw, his sister's hesitation. Then her heels clicked toward the door. "Call me if anything changes." When she was gone, Alaric pressed his forehead to Zafira's hand and closed his eyes. 2 weeks ago, she'd fallen down their penthouse stairs. The doctors called it a tragic accident. The police found no evidence of foul play. And yet something in his gut, that same instinct that had built his empire from a single poker room to a tech casino dynasty, screamed that nothing about this was accidental. "I saw her," he whispered. "I don't know what she was doing, but I saw her. If you can hear me, Zafira, if any part of you is still in there, I need you to hold on. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out, just like we always do." The heart monitor beeped its steady rhythm. Zafira's chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Her dark eyes stayed closed, but on the monitor her heart rate had increased by exactly 3 beats per minute. Alaric straightened. He stared at the numbers, then at his wife's face. "Zafira?" Nothing. The rate stayed elevated but stable. Probably a coincidence. Probably his exhausted mind seeing patterns that didn't exist. He pulled out his phone and opened a secure message to his head of security. 3 words. "Install cameras tonight." Then he sat down in the chair beside her bed to wait for dawn and to watch for his sister's return. The cameras went live at 4 the next afternoon. Alaric watched the feeds from his downtown office, ostensibly reviewing quarterly projections, while his attention stayed locked on the small window in the corner of his screen, showing Zafira's hospital room. He'd positioned the camera inside a flower arrangement, a massive display of white orchids that Mireya herself had sent 3 days earlier. The irony satisfied something dark in him. For 2 hours, nothing happened. Nurses rotated in and out on schedule. The neurologist checked Zafira's pupils and reflexes. A hospital administrator stopped by to discuss care options, her clipboard tight against her chest like armor. Then Mireya arrived. She swept in wearing cream-colored linen, carrying a leather bag that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She set it down, carefully glanced at the door, then moved to Zafira's bedside. "Hello, sister." Mireya's voice came through crystal clear on the audio feed. "Still sleeping, I see. That's probably for the best." She pulled a chair close and sat, her posture perfect. To anyone watching, she looked like a devoted family member keeping vigil. But Alaric noticed her hands. They kept moving to the IV line, touching it, following its path from bag to vein. "Do you know what's funny?" Mireya continued, her tone conversational. "Alaric thinks he's so clever, building his empire, making his deals. But you're the one who really built it, aren't you? All those financial structures, those safeguards. I've been going through the corporate files. Very impressive." She stood and began to pace, a habit she'd had since childhood when working through complex problems. "The thing is, those safeguards need you alive to function. I checked. Every major decision requires your biometric signature or Alaric's plus yours for the really important things. You set it up so the company can't be sold, can't be split, can't be leveraged without you, which makes you a very expensive liability in your current condition." Alaric's hand clenched around his phone. On screen, Mireya stopped pacing and leaned over Zafira's motionless form. "I'm not a monster," she said softly. "I'm just someone who's been waiting her whole life for what's rightfully hers. Our father gave everything to Alaric because I was the bastard daughter, the shameful secret. But I'm smarter than him. I'm more ruthless. And unlike you, I was actually born into this family." She reached for the IV line again. Alaric was already moving, his chair crashing backward. He grabbed his keys and ran for the elevator, phone pressed to his ear. "Security, this is Voss. I need 2 guards at my wife's room immediately. Nobody touches her until I get there." "Sir, your sister is currently—" "Especially not my sister." The drive from his office to Sunrise Hospital normally took 15 minutes. Alaric made it in 8, leaving his Aston Martin in a loading zone with the door open. He took the stairs to the 4th floor ICU because elevators felt like coffins. When he burst into Zafira's room, Mireya was sitting calmly in the visitor's chair, reading a magazine. 2 security guards flanked the door. Alaric. She looked up with practiced surprise. Is everything all right? He dismissed the guards with a gesture and shut the door. Then he played the audio from his phone. Mireya's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: shock, calculation, and finally something almost like admiration. You recorded me. What did you do to her? His voice was dangerous now, stripped of civility. The stairs. Was that you? Don't be ridiculous. I wasn't even there that night. But you knew it was going to happen. I knew she was careless. Pregnant women get dizzy. Accidents happen. Mireya set down the magazine. But, since we're being honest, let me ask you something. Do you really love her, Alaric? Or do you love what she can do for you? Because from where I'm sitting, your marriage was as strategic as a corporate merger. Get out. The truth hurts, doesn't it? You married her because she was brilliant, because she could see patterns in financial data that nobody else could, because she made you richer than you'd ever been alone. Mireya stood, smoothing her linen dress. You didn't fall in love until after the wedding, and by then you needed her too much to let her go. That's not love, brother. That's dependency. Alaric moved between her and the bed. You have 30 seconds to leave before I call the police. And tell them what? That you recorded a private conversation without consent? That your grieving sister said some harsh things while sitting with your comatose wife? Mireya picked up her bag. I'm not afraid of you, Alaric. I grew up afraid of our father, afraid of being erased, afraid of being nothing. I'm not that girl anymore. She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope she wakes up. I really do. Because if she doesn't, you'll lose everything anyway. The board will force you out within 6 months. They're already talking about it. When she was gone, Alaric locked the door and returned to Zafira's side. His hands were shaking. He gripped the bed rail to steady them. I heard what she said, about why I married you. His voice cracked. She wasn't entirely wrong. You were the most fascinating person I'd ever met. Your mind worked like nobody else's. And yes, I needed you. I needed your intelligence, your vision, your ability to see 3 moves ahead. He sat down heavily, suddenly exhausted. But she's wrong about when I fell in love. It wasn't after the wedding. It was during the ceremony. You remember that moment? The officiant asked if anyone objected, and you smiled. This tiny, secret smile like you knew something nobody else did. And I realized you'd probably planned for that contingency too. You'd probably calculated every possible disruption and had a response ready. And I thought, this woman is going to make my life infinitely more complicated and infinitely better. On the monitor, Zafira's heart rate jumped from 72 to 84. Alaric's breath caught. Zafira? The number climbed to 87, 90, 93. Can you hear me? He grabbed her hand, squeezing gently. If you can hear me, I need you to know I'm going to fix this. Whatever Mireya's planning, whatever game she's playing, I'm going to stop her. But I need to know, are you in there? Are you conscious? A nurse burst through the door, alerted by the monitors. Mr. Voss, step back, please. She responded. I was talking, and she responded. The nurse checked the machines, her movements efficient. Her vitals are elevated but stable. It could be a stress response. Has anything changed in the environment? I was talking to her. That's good. Keep doing that. Studies show coma patients can sometimes hear loved ones. She adjusted something on the IV. But try to keep the conversation positive. Stress isn't good for the baby. When the nurse left, Alaric pulled his chair closer. Positive. Right. Let me tell you about the Chen situation then. You were right about him trying to leverage the Macau expansion. I blocked it using that voting trust you established. The board was impressed. Chen was furious. You would have enjoyed watching his face. Zafira's heart rate slowly returned to its baseline, but Alaric kept talking, building a one-sided conversation that felt less like hope and more like prayer. Over the next 72 hours, Alaric established a pattern. He worked from Zafira's hospital room, laptop balanced on his knees, conducting video conferences while holding her hand. He documented every change in her vitals, every involuntary movement, every flutter of her eyelids. And he noticed something the doctors hadn't. Zafira's responses weren't random. They correlated with specific stimuli. When he played music she'd loved, old jazz recordings, Miles Davis and Coltrane, her heart rate stayed steady. When he mentioned the baby, her blood pressure dropped slightly. And when he talked about Mireya, every biological marker spiked. On the fourth day, Dr. Sarah Chen, a neurologist specializing in consciousness disorders, reviewed his documentation. "This is remarkable," she said, her finger tracing the graphs he'd compiled. "You're suggesting she's in a locked-in state rather than a true coma?" "I'm suggesting she can hear us. I don't know how much she can process, but she's aware." Dr. Chen moved to Zafira's bedside. "Mrs. Voss, if you can hear me, I'm going to ask you to try something. I want you to attempt to move your right index finger, just the smallest movement. Can you try that for me?" They watched. Seconds stretched. Alaric held his breath. Zafira's finger twitched. "Again," Dr. Chen said, her voice controlled but urgent. "Move your finger twice if you can hear me." Twitch, twitch. Jesus Christ. Alaric stood so fast his chair fell over. "She's been conscious this whole time. We need to run tests, immediately." Dr. Chen was already calling for her team. "This changes everything. If she's locked in, she's been aware of her surroundings for 2 weeks. She knows what happened to her." The implications hit Alaric like a physical blow. She heard Mireya. "What?" "My sister. She's been visiting, saying things. If Zafira's been conscious..." He couldn't finish the sentence. The horror was too immense. Dr. Chen's expression shifted from medical curiosity to something more guarded. "What kinds of things?" "Threatening things. I have recordings." "Then we need to restrict visitors immediately, and possibly contact the authorities." She paused, her hand on Zafira's shoulder. "Mr. Voss, if your wife has been aware and unable to communicate, trapped in her own body while someone threatened her, the psychological trauma alone could be catastrophic, not to mention the stress on her pregnancy." Alaric felt something crack open inside his chest. All this time, Zafira had been there, hearing everything, feeling everything, unable to scream or move or protect herself or their child, and he'd left her alone with the woman who wanted her dead. "I need to talk to her," he said, "alone." When the room cleared, Alaric knelt beside the bed so his face was level with Zafira's. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know. I should have known, but I didn't. You've been here, aware, while I fumbled around trying to figure out what was happening. While Mireya..." His voice broke. "While she said those things to you." He pressed his forehead to the sheets. "I failed you. I was supposed to protect you, and I failed. But I swear, Zafira, I swear on everything we've built together, I'm going to make this right. Move your finger if you understand me." A pause. Then, unmistakably, her finger moved once. "Mireya pushed you. Down the stairs." He said it as a statement, not a question. "Move your finger if I'm right." One twitch, clear and deliberate. Alaric stood, his mind already racing through legal strategies, evidence requirements, witness protection. But before he could spiral into planning, Zafira's finger moved again. 3 rapid twitches. 3? 3 what? He grabbed his phone, pulled up a simple alphabet chart he'd found online for locked-in patients. I'm going to go through the alphabet. Twitch when I get to the right letter. First word, first letter. A, B, C. They worked through it slowly, painfully. Each word took minutes, but gradually a message emerged. Trust no one. No one except you, Alaric corrected. I trust you. Her finger moved again, insistent. He returned to the alphabet. Mireya, not alone. The word sent ice through his veins. She has help. Who? It took almost 20 minutes to spell out the next word. Board. Someone on the board is working with her. Alaric began pacing, his mind clicking through possibilities. Chen. It's Chen, isn't it? He's been pushing hardest for restructuring. How many people? This time Zafira's response came faster. She'd found a rhythm. 3. 3 board members are conspiring with Mireya to remove you from the company, and once you're gone, they'll remove me too. He laughed, but it sounded bitter even to his own ears. You built safeguards against a hostile takeover, but not against family betrayal. I can't blame you for that. I didn't see it either. Another twitch. More spelling. Laptop. Your laptop? The one from your office? One twitch for yes. What about it? Evidence. Alaric felt hope surge for the first time in weeks. You documented something. Before the fall. You knew what they were planning. Yes. Where's the laptop now? Home. Safe. The home safe, of course. He bent down and kissed her, forehead gently. You're brilliant, you know that? Absolutely brilliant. Even trapped in your own body, you're still 10 moves ahead. Her finger twitched in a pattern he was starting to recognize as her attempt at emphasis. Then she spelled, Baby okay? The baby's fine. Strong heartbeat. You're both fighters. He placed his hand carefully on her stomach. We're going to get through this. All 3 of us. I promise. That night, Alaric returned to their penthouse for the first time since the accident. The marble staircase still bore scuff marks from where Zafira had fallen. He forced himself to walk past it to their bedroom, to the abstract painting of the Las Vegas skyline that hid the wall safe. The combination was their wedding date. Inside, he found Zafira's laptop, exactly where she'd said. He took it to his home office and spent the next 4 hours going through encrypted files. What he found confirmed everything and revealed even more. Zafira had discovered the conspiracy 3 weeks before her fall. She'd documented email exchanges, recorded phone calls, and compiled financial records showing how Mireya and 3 board members, Chen, Rodriguez, and surprisingly, Marcus Webb, his oldest friend, had been planning a coordinated assault on the company's leadership structure. But more than that, she'd discovered why. There was another company, a Chinese tech conglomerate, willing to pay $8 billion for Voss Industries if it could be delivered without its current power structure. Mireya stood to make $2 billion personally from the deal. The board members would split another $1 billion, and Alaric and Zafira would be left with nothing but legal fees. The final file was a video recording, dated 2 days before the fall. Zafira sat at this same desk, her face composed, but her eyes showing the strain. If you're watching this, Alaric, something has happened to me. I've tried to tell you about the conspiracy, but you've been so focused on the Japan expansion that I didn't want to distract you until I had irrefutable proof. I have it now. Everything's documented. But I'm afraid I may have been too cautious. Mireya knows I've been investigating. I can feel her watching me. On screen, Zafira glanced at her barely visible pregnancy bump and placed a protective hand over it. If the worst happens, if they succeed in removing me, You need to know that I've built a dead man's switch into the company structure. If I'm incapacitated for more than 60 days, or if I die, a sealed file will be sent to the SEC, the FBI, and the Wall Street Journal. It details everything: the conspiracy, the bribery, the planned illegal takeover. They'll all go to prison. She leaned closer to the camera. But that's the scorched earth option, love. I'd rather we protect what we built. So if you're watching this, and I'm alive but unable to communicate, know that I've hidden everything you need to fight back. Use it. Save our company. Save our family. The video ended with her characteristic secret smile, the same one that had made him fall in love during their wedding ceremony. Alaric closed the laptop and called his attorney, Marcus Webb's former law partner, a woman Zafira had vetted personally named Jennifer Huang. If Webb was compromised, Jennifer was their best alternative. I need you to draw up papers, removing 3 board members for cause and initiating a criminal investigation into corporate conspiracy, he said without preamble. And I need it done by tomorrow morning. Alaric, it's midnight. Jennifer, my wife is lying in a hospital bed in a locked-in state because my sister tried to kill her. Tomorrow, I'm going to destroy everyone involved. I need you with me, or I need to know now so I can find someone else. A pause. Then, send me everything. I'll have the papers ready by 8 a.m. The next morning, Alaric called an emergency board meeting. He arrived early and had Jennifer arrange the room with a particular setup, video camera positioned to capture everyone's reactions, documents laid out at each seat, and security stationed at every exit. The board members filed in looking wary. Chen shot him a careful smile. Rodriguez busied himself with his phone. Webb, his supposed friend since college, couldn't meet his eyes. Mireya arrived last, dressed in black, her face arranged in sympathetic lines. Alaric, what's this about? I thought we agreed to handle Zafira's situation quietly. Sit down, Alaric said. When everyone was seated, he remained standing. 2 weeks ago, my wife fell down a flight of stairs in our home. The preliminary investigation called it an accident. I believed that for exactly 3 days. Then I started noticing inconsistencies. Alaric, Mireya began. I'm not finished. His voice cut through her attempted interruption like a blade. You see, my wife is not just beautiful and brilliant. She's methodical. She documents everything. And in the weeks before her fall, she documented a conspiracy to illegally transfer control of this company to a foreign entity for $8 billion. The room went very still. Alaric opened his laptop and turned it toward the board. These are emails between Chen, Rodriguez, Webb, and Mireya discussing the timeline for the takeover. These are financial records showing wire transfers from a shell company connected to Tiangong Tech. And this, he played Zafira's video, is my wife explaining exactly how she's going to destroy all of you if anything happens to her. Chen stood abruptly. This is absurd. I won't sit here and be accused. Sit down, Henry, or security will make you sit down. Alaric nodded to the guards. You're not going anywhere until we're finished. Rodriguez tried next. Even if these documents are real, which I'm not conceding, you can't prove we did anything illegal. Actually, I can. Jennifer stood, distributing packets to each member. These are federal warrants for your arrest on charges of corporate espionage, conspiracy to commit fraud, and attempted murder. The FBI is waiting outside. The room erupted. Webb stood, his face pale. Murder? Nobody said anything about murder. No? Alaric turned to him. Then explain why Mireya was seen by 3 separate witnesses near our penthouse the night Zafira fell, despite claiming she was in California. Explain why building security footage shows her entering our private elevator at 9:47 p.m. just 12 minutes before Zafira's fall. Explain any of this, Marcus, please. I'd love to hear you try. His oldest friend opened his mouth and closed it again, his face crumbling. But Mireya remained composed. You have nothing concrete, circumstantial evidence and a bitter husband's accusations. No court will convict on this. You're right about one thing. Alaric moved closer to her, his voice dropping to something cold and precise. I am bitter. I'm furious. My wife has been conscious, trapped in her own body for 2 weeks, hearing everything you said to her, every threat, every smug revelation, and she remembered it all. For the first time, real fear flickered across Mireya's face. That's impossible. She's comatose. She's locked in. There's a difference. And yesterday, with a neurologist present, she communicated what happened. She identified you as her attacker. That testimony, combined with the security footage, the financial records, and your recorded statements in her hospital room, yes, I recorded all of those conversations, will be more than enough. He signaled to Jennifer, who opened the door. FBI agents filed in, badges visible. Mireya Voss, you're under arrest for attempted murder and conspiracy to commit corporate fraud, the lead agent announced. Henry Chen, Daniel Rodriguez, Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit corporate fraud and foreign corrupt practices violations. The arrests happened in surreal silence. Chen blustered. Rodriguez tried to bargain. Webb just looked broken. But Mireya stayed quiet until they handcuffed her. Then she looked at Alaric with something almost like respect. She really did see everything, didn't she? All of this. She always does. And you? Did you really fall in love during the ceremony? Or was that a nice story for court? Alaric thought about lying, then decided his sister had lied enough for both of them. Every word was true. I fell in love with Zafira's mind first, then her heart, then everything else about her. Marrying her was strategic. Staying with her was the easiest decision I've ever made. And if you'd taken even a moment to look past your own entitlement, you would have seen that. Mireya smiled sadly. Entitlement. Is that what you call wanting what I was owed? What father promised me before you were born? Father promised you nothing. He left you money, education, opportunities. He didn't owe you a company you had no part in building. Alaric turned away, as the agents led her toward the door. You could have had a real role here. I offered you one 3 times. You chose betrayal instead. I chose power. You chose prison. After they were gone, Alaric dismissed the remaining board members and sat alone in the empty conference room. His phone buzzed with a text from Dr. Chen. He opened it with shaking hands. Zafira's mobility showing improvement. Right hand can now grip. Baby's vitals excellent. Come when you can. He made the drive to the hospital in a daze, his mind struggling to process everything that had happened in the last 12 hours. When he entered Zafira's room, Dr. Chen was there with 2 other specialists. We need to show you something, she said. They gathered around the bed. Dr. Chen held up a simple board with yes and no printed on it. Mrs. Voss, can you blink once for yes, twice for no? Zafira blinked once, deliberate and clear. Excellent. Can you move your right hand? Her fingers curled slowly, like a flower opening in reverse. Outstanding. Dr. Chen glanced at Alaric. Her progression is remarkable. We're starting to see emerging motor control. It's slow, but it's there. I believe with intensive therapy, we might see significant recovery. How long? Alaric asked. Months, maybe years for full function. But the important thing is she's fighting back. Dr. Chen squeezed Zafira's shoulder gently. And that baby of yours is tough as nails, both heartbeats strong and steady. When they left him alone with his wife, Alaric pulled the chair close and took her hand. Her fingers tightened around his, weak but unmistakable. "They arrested them all," he said quietly. "Mireya, Chen, Rodriguez, Webb. The FBI has everything. Jennifer says the case is airtight. They'll go to prison for a long time." Zafira's eyes, which had been closed, slowly opened. It took visible effort, her lids fluttering before finally staying up. Brown eyes, clear and focused, met his. Alaric felt tears he'd been holding back for 2 weeks finally break free. "Hey," he whispered. "There you are." Her mouth moved, trying to form words. Nothing came out but a small breath. "Don't push it. We have time." He brought her hand to his lips. "I need to tell you something. When you fell, when I realized what had happened, I thought I'd lost everything that mattered. The company, the empire we built, none of it meant anything without you. And I know that sounds like something someone would say in a movie, but it's true. You're not my strategy anymore, Zafira. You're my home." She blinked rapidly. Not a yes or no response, just emotion she couldn't otherwise express. "The baby's fine," he continued. "Perfect heartbeat, already stubborn like both parents. Dr. Chen says if you continue progressing, we might even aim for a normal delivery. Wouldn't that be something? You, me, and our kid, proving everyone wrong." Her fingers tightened again. "I'm going to be here every day," Alaric said, "working from this room, running the company from this chair, until you're strong enough to come back and take your rightful place. Because that's what's going to happen. You're going to recover. We're going to have this baby, and we're going to run our empire together, just like you planned." Zafira's mouth moved again. This time, he leaned closer, watching carefully. She was trying to form a word. It took 3 attempts, but finally he heard it. A whisper so soft, he almost missed it. "Love." "I love you too," he said. "So much it terrifies me." Her eyes, still locked on his, showed something that might have been a smile if her face could fully respond. Then, with visible effort, she formed one more word. "Winning." Alaric laughed, the sound halfway to a sob. "Yes, we're winning. We always do when we work together." The next 6 months were a study in incremental victories. Zafira relearned movement one muscle group at a time. First her hands, then her arms, then finally, after 4 months of intensive therapy, her legs. Speech came back in fragments, single words, then phrases, then full sentences delivered slowly, but with her characteristic precision. The baby, a boy they named Marcus after Alaric's father, arrived 2 weeks early but healthy, weighing 6 pounds, and already scowling like he had opinions about the world. Zafira held him from her wheelchair, tears streaming down her face as she counted his fingers and toes. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Mireya maintained her innocence throughout, but the evidence was overwhelming. Security footage, financial records, Zafira's testimony delivered slowly from the witness stand, and finally, the recorded conversations from the hospital room where Mireya had detailed her entire plan to a woman she thought couldn't hear. The jury deliberated for 6 hours, guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge called it one of the most calculated attacks she'd ever seen. Mireya received 25 years. Chen and Rodriguez got 15 each. Webb, who'd cooperated and shown genuine remorse, received 8 with possibility of parole. On the day the verdict was read, Alaric and Zafira stood together on the courthouse steps, her leaning on a cane, him holding their son. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, the Las Vegas sun beat down with characteristic intensity. "Mrs. Voss, how does it feel to have justice?" Zafira smiled, that same secret smile from their wedding. "Justice is important, but recovery is better. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a company to run, and a child to raise." She turned, her movement still careful, but growing stronger every day, and took her husband's arm. Together, they walked toward their car, where a driver waited to take them home. That night, after Marcus was asleep and the penthouse was quiet, they stood together by the massive windows overlooking the Strip. The lights of Las Vegas spread below them like a constellation brought to Earth. All that power, all that money, all that risk and reward, compressed into a few miles of desert real estate. "Do you regret it?" Alaric asked. "Any of it? Marrying you strategically?" Zafira leaned against him, still too weak to stand unsupported for long. "No. Best strategy I ever deployed." "Even knowing what it led to?" "It led to this. You, me, our son, our empire intact. Mireya thought she was entitled to power because she was born first. But power isn't inherited. It's built." She turned to face him, her movements still slow but determined. "We built this together. Every safeguard, every contingency plan, every protection. She never had a chance because she never understood that the company isn't the empire. We are." Alaric pulled her closer, careful of her still healing body. "The doctors say you'll make a full recovery. Another year of therapy, maybe less." "I don't need a year." Zafira's voice was stronger now, almost back to its usual confident tone. "I'm already working on the Tokyo expansion from my tablet. Chen's replacement is brilliant, by the way. Good instincts." "You hired her from your hospital bed." "I hired her from my wheelchair. There's a difference." She smiled. "And I've been reviewing the Q3 projections. We're going to exceed expectations by 18% if the Macau deal closes on schedule." Alaric shook his head, marveling. "You were locked in your own body for weeks. You nearly died. You gave birth 2 months ago, and you're already 3 moves ahead of the entire board." 4 moves, actually. There's something I haven't told you yet." She pulled back slightly to meet his eyes. "I've been in contact with the SEC. They're interested in using our case as a template for new corporate governance regulations. We'd be helping write the framework that protects companies from internal sabotage. You want to turn our nightmare into policy. I want to make sure nobody else's family tries to destroy them from the inside." Her expression hardened briefly, showing the steel underneath her elegant exterior. "Mireya isn't unique. There are dozens of Mireyas in boardrooms across the country. People who feel entitled to power they didn't earn. If we can help close those vulnerabilities, everything we went through will mean something beyond just our survival." "You're remarkable," Alaric said simply. "You know that?" "I'm practical. There's a difference." But she was smiling again, that secret smile that had captured him 2 years ago at their wedding. "Although I will admit, lying in that hospital bed, hearing but unable to respond, gave me a lot of time to think. About us, about what matters, about what I'd do if I got another chance. And I decided that when I could move again, when I could speak again, I wasn't going to waste time on small talk or pretense. So here's what I need you to know." She took his hand and placed it over her heart. "You said you fell in love during the ceremony. I fell in love 3 weeks after the wedding, when you stayed up all night helping me debug that financial model, even though you had the Beijing meeting at 6 a.m. You fell asleep at your desk with equations written on your hands, and I thought, this man chose me as his partner, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving he was right." Alaric felt his throat tighten. "You've proven it every day since." "Not every day. Some days I was just trying to survive." Her voice dropped to something more vulnerable. "Those weeks in the hospital, Alaric, hearing Mireya talk about killing me, about the baby, about destroying everything we'd built, I wanted to scream. I wanted to fight. But all I could do was lie there and trust that you'd figure it out, that you'd see through her act and protect us. And you did. You saved us. You saved us, he corrected. That laptop, those files, the dead man's switch. You planned for the worst and gave me everything I needed to fight back. We saved each other then. Zafira leaned her head against his chest, exhaustion finally showing in her posture. That's what partners do. They stood like that for a long moment, the Las Vegas lights painting patterns across their faces, their son sleeping peacefully in the next room, their empire secure beneath them. Behind them, the marble staircase where Zafira had nearly died had been replaced with a wide, gently sloping ramp. Her idea, implemented the day she came home from the hospital. No more stairs, she'd said. No more vulnerability in our own home. Now, looking out at the city they'd conquered together, Alaric understood what she'd really meant. No more blind spots, no more trusting family over evidence, no more assuming that blood meant loyalty. Marcus is going to wake up in about 20 minutes, Zafira said, her internal clock still perfect despite everything. And tomorrow, we have the board meeting about the Australian acquisition. And next week, the therapy center wants to interview me about recovery protocols for locked-in patients. You're going to change how they treat those cases, Alaric said. You know that, right? Your documentation, your communication method, it's already being taught in medical schools. Good. She straightened, pushing away from him to stand on her own, wobbling slightly, but determined. If I can help even one person avoid what I went through, or help one family member recognize the signs faster, then maybe there's purpose in the trauma. You don't have to find purpose in it. What happened to you was evil. It was evil. It was also educational. Her tone was matter-of-fact, clinical even. I learned that our security protocols were insufficient, that our family dynamics were toxic in ways I hadn't recognized, that our company structure, despite my safeguards, still had vulnerabilities. Now I know. Now I can fix them. Alaric pulled her back gently. You can also just be angry about it. You can just hurt without turning it into a lesson plan. For a moment, Zafira's composure cracked. Her eyes welled up and her voice shook. I am angry. I'm furious. She tried to kill me. She tried to kill our son. She stood over me and gloated while I couldn't move or speak or even blink to tell her I heard every word. I'm so angry I can't breathe sometimes. Then be angry. You've earned it. But if I'm just angry, she still has power over me. Zafira wiped her eyes impatiently. If I turn it into something useful, something that protects other people, then she loses. Completely. Not just prison. She loses any claim to having impacted my life beyond making me stronger. You're already the strongest person I know. I'm the most stubborn person you know. There's a difference. She managed a watery laugh. Ask any of my physical therapists. They wanted me to wait 6 months before trying to walk. I was walking in 4. You were hobbling in 4, walking in 5. Details. She wiped her eyes again and squared her shoulders. The point is, Mireya thought she could break me, thought she could take everything I'd built and erase me from existence. Instead, she's in prison. We're stronger than ever, and I'm about to revolutionize corporate governance and medical protocols for locked-in patients. She failed in every possible way. From the nursery, Marcus began to cry, that particular newborn wail that meant he was hungry and not interested in waiting. That's my cue, Zafira said. And yes, before you offer, I can walk there myself. I need to. Every step matters. Alaric watched her make her way slowly toward the nursery, her cane tapping against the hardwood floor, her posture determined despite obvious fatigue. She was right. Every step did matter. Each one was proof that she'd survived, that she was reclaiming her body and her life. He followed at a distance, standing in the doorway as she lifted Marcus from his crib with careful movements. The baby quieted immediately, recognizing his mother's touch. She settled into the nursing chair, positioning him with the efficiency of someone who'd done this calculation 1,000 times in her head before attempting it physically. "You know what I think about sometimes?" she said, not looking up from their son. "That moment on the stairs. I felt her hand on my back, felt the push, and for maybe 2 seconds before I hit the ground, I knew. I knew it was intentional. I knew it was her. And I knew I had to survive." "What were you thinking in those 2 seconds?" "I was thinking about the laptop, about whether you'd find it, about whether I'd left enough breadcrumbs for you to follow." She looked up then, her eyes clear and focused. "And I was thinking about our son, that he deserved to know his mother, that I wasn't ready to let him go before I'd even met him. You protected him even while falling. I turned my body at the last second, took the impact on my shoulder and head instead of my stomach. It's why the brain trauma was so severe. I chose that over risking him." She kissed Marcus's forehead. "Best decision I ever made." Alaric crossed the room and knelt beside them. "I meant what I said at the trial, about how you're not my strategy anymore, but you are my partner, in everything. The company, this family, whatever comes next." "Whatever comes next is going to be extraordinary," Zafira said confidently. "We're going to raise this boy to be brilliant and kind. We're going to expand the company into markets Mireya never even imagined. We're going to be so successful that in 10 years, people will have forgotten she was ever part of this family. She'll just be a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition overrides ethics. And us? What will we be?" She smiled, that secret smile that still made his heart skip. "We'll be exactly what we've always been. 2 people who started as a strategy and became something neither of us planned for. Something better." Marcus finished nursing and made a small, contented sound. Outside, Las Vegas continued its eternal performance. Lights blazing, money flowing, fortunes made and lost with every spin of a wheel. But inside this penthouse, in this moment, the Voss family had something more valuable than any casino could offer. They had each other. Hard-won, battle-tested, and unbreakable. "I love you," Alaric said. "For the strategy, for the partnership, for the way you turn falling downstairs into a corporate governance revolution. All of it." "I love you too," Zafira replied. "For believing me when I could only move one finger. For fighting for us when it would have been easier to accept the board's recommendations. For being the partner I calculated I needed and the husband I never knew I wanted." Very romantic, really hitting those emotional beats. "I'm a financial analyst, not a poet. You're lucky you get 'I love you' instead of 'our emotional ROI exceeds projections.'" But she was laughing, the sound lighter than it had been in months. Marcus had fallen back asleep, his tiny face peaceful. Zafira stood carefully, cane in one hand, and placed him back in the crib with practiced precision. Together, she and Alaric stood watching their son breathe, watching his small chest rise and fall with perfect rhythm. "He's going to ask about Mireya someday," Alaric said quietly. "About what happened. What are we going to tell him? The truth. That family isn't always safety. That trust has to be earned, not assumed. That his mother survived something terrible and turned it into something meaningful." Zafira adjusted the blanket around Marcus. "And that his father loves him enough to fight the whole world to keep him safe." Sounds like a heavy conversation for a kid. "He's our kid. He'll be ready for it." She turned from the crib, leaning heavily on her cane. "But first, let's focus on getting me strong enough to chase him around a playground. The doctors say another 8 months for that." "You'll do it in 6. 4 if I'm determined. She met his eyes. Want to bet? Alaric laughed and offered his arm for support. I've learned never to bet against you. You'll just make a spreadsheet proving why you'll win, and I'll end up sleeping on the couch. Smart man. They walked together back to their bedroom, Zafira's steps slow but steady, Alaric matching her pace. Through the windows, Las Vegas spread out below them like a kingdom made of light. A kingdom they'd defended together, nearly lost together, and ultimately saved together. In the end, that was the real empire. Not the casinos or the corporate holdings or the billions in assets. The real empire was built in hospital rooms and quiet conversations, in finger twitches spelling out alphabet letters, in the decision to trust a partner even when everyone else offered easier answers. Mireya had wanted power. She'd schemed and manipulated and ultimately destroyed her own life trying to seize it. But she'd never understood what Alaric and Zafira had learned. Real power came from partnership, not domination. From trust, not control. From building something together that neither could have achieved alone. Thank you, Zafira said as they reached the bedroom. For not giving up, for believing I was still in there. Always, Alaric replied. In every scenario, every calculation, every possible outcome, I'm always going to believe in you. She kissed him then, soft and slow, a promise and a celebration combined. When they pulled apart, her eyes were bright with tears and determination and something that looked like hope. Bed, she said firmly. We both need sleep. Marcus will be up again in 3 hours, and I have that board meeting in the morning. The meeting's not until 10. You could skip it. And let Chen's replacement think I'm not watching her performance? Absolutely not. Zafira settled into bed, arranging pillows to support her still healing body. Besides, I want to see everyone's faces when I walk in without the wheelchair. I've been practicing. Of course you have. 4 steps unassisted this morning. By tomorrow, I'll manage 6. Alaric climbed into bed beside her, careful not to jostle her. You're going to push too hard, and your therapist is going to call me again. Your therapist calls you because she knows you'll answer. If she called me, I'd remind her that I'm exceeding every recovery benchmark, and she should update her expected outcomes. Zafira settled against his shoulder. But yes, I'm pushing hard. I have to. Every day I'm not at full capacity is a day someone might think I'm vulnerable. I can't afford that. Not now. You're allowed to be vulnerable, especially with me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, I'm terrified. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back on those stairs, falling, or I'm in the hospital bed, trapped, listening to her talk about killing me. Or I'm fighting to move one finger and wondering if you'll understand what I'm trying to say. I'm so scared it'll happen again, that I'll lose control again. Alaric pulled her closer, his heart breaking and mending simultaneously. It won't happen again. We've rebuilt everything. New security, new protocols, new people. And Mireya is gone. She can't hurt you anymore. I know that intellectually, but my body hasn't caught up yet. She pressed her face against his chest. Hold me until I fall asleep. Every night for the rest of our lives if you want. That's the plan. Her breathing was already slowing, exhaustion finally overtaking determination. Rest of our lives, building empires, raising our son, being extraordinary. Being us, Alaric corrected softly. That's already extraordinary enough. Zafira's only response was a small sound that might have been agreement or might have been the beginning of sleep. Alaric held her, feeling her heartbeat steady and strong against his chest, listening to Marcus breathing peacefully in the next room, watching Las Vegas lights paint moving shadows across their ceiling. They'd survived. against conspiracy and betrayal, against attempted murder and corporate sabotage, against the worst his family could throw at them. They'd survived, more than survived, they'd won. And tomorrow, Zafira would walk into that board meeting on her own 2 feet. She'd run her empire from her rightful place. She'd continue healing, continue building, continue being the most formidable person he'd ever known. And he'd be right beside her, just like always. Partner, husband, co-conspirator in every plan she devised. Because that was the deal they'd made, first as strategy, then as love, now as something that transcended both. In the silk veins of the desert, where fortunes rose and fell with every card turned, the Voss empire stood stronger than ever, built not on sand or luck or inheritance, but on partnership, on 2 people who'd started as a calculation and become something incalculable, something worth fighting for, something worth surviving for, something extraordinary. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, survival, and love forged in fire, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more thrilling tales. Drop a comment below telling us what you thought of Alaric and Zafira's journey. Would you have trusted your partner the way they trusted each other? And don't forget to hit that like button to help others discover this story. More romantic suspense coming soon, so turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thanks for watching, and remember, the best empires are built by 2.